What's up, saints, friends, and others? Welcome to the King's Dominion podcast, the official podcast of Dominion Church and our School of Ministry, Dominion Institute. I'm Josh Wyatt, the pastor of the church, founder of the School of Ministry, and I'm here for the second episode with my parents, actually. My wife's not here, but my parents are in her place, talking about kingdom parenting. Glad to have you on.
Thank you.
And we're super stoked about the conversation. We were talking last week about kingdom parenting. All of this started because, of course, my wife and I help with a lot of couples in our church have young kids. And you're going to parent the way God leads you, and what works in one house won't work for another house. And so, you're going to be led of the Spirit. However, a lot of people mimic the way that we parent our kids because we have a good household and our kids love us and we love our kids. And we speak to that. And then I wanted to bring our worship pastor on, Pastor Jess, and we did for a couple episodes because she's a great mama and great at motherhood and being a good parent. And we talked to her about that for 2 episodes. And then we had a conversation with her where we were like, man, we have 4 kids under 3. And she has a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, but we wanted somebody from the perspective of parenting adult children, because that is a whole different animal. And if you try to parent your adult children like they're children, you'll lose them. It's a whole different animal. The parenting style has to be completely different. And we were trying to figure out who could speak to raising and parenting adult children. And my wife looked at me and she said, "Your parents. You're an adult. They raised you and they're good parents to you as an adult child." And so I signed them up and said that we were doing this. So we left off, and we don't have to pick up from where we were last week, but we left off talking about that experience. For those of you that don't know, my wife and I graduated from Rhema Bible Training College in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I was 19, turning 20 a month later, but I was 19 and she was 21 when we moved off to Tulsa, away from our families and friends and everything that we knew. And my parents moved us there. And that whole process of them moving us and then us being there 2 years without any friends or family, almost 3 years without any friends or family, was an experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So you speak to that, either one of you, kind of what that was like and pros.
So in the last podcast, we were talking about when we took them there. We moved them there, moved them into their apartment, set them up, filled the pantry, and got in our cars and left. And my husband, he don't want you to know that he gets upset or cries, but when it comes to those kids or grandkids, he'll definitely tear up. So I was sitting in the car, and they had already had car trouble. I think the battery was going dead or something, and he got out and he fixed it, and he packed all of his stuff up, and he got back in the car with tears. And we began to cry as we drove off and left them 10 hours away by themselves. But as I said before, that was the best thing that we could have ever done for our grown children, because they are learning their own normal, and it's not our place to put our opinion on that, but to be there and support them when they need us.
Right.
And, Mama Bear over here, she wanted to, she was like, we need to make sure everything is taken care of. Let's stock it with groceries and everything like that. And of course, I was the same way. I think I bought a battery charger and a tire inflator or whatever. I went to Home Depot and picked up a bunch of stuff, a toolbox. So, hey, here's you some screwdrivers, and because I'm a carpenter contractor by trade, here's some tools so that you can work on whatever you need to work on while you're out here.
And he still left everything broke until we came back to visit.
So, but on a slightly different note with that is that, there's 2 roles when it comes to parenting, on a successful couple parenting. She is the nurturer. She is wanting to make sure that everything is right and everything is, I want to make sure everything is taken care of. She balances out sometimes my role, which is, I need them to go through it, to experience it, to grow through it, to go through it and grow through it. And she's like, I don't like to see them, go through that. I'm like, well, if they don't grow through it, then they're not going to make it if something else comes up. And so, but from a guy standpoint, from a dad, from a carpenter, I can be a little bit too gun-ho with that. I need you to grow through it. I need you to, suck it up and do it, rub dirt in it, do what you need to do. So she balances me out fairly well, because she'll turn around and say, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, I don't know. But we end up, so we kind of meet in that middle ground, and she can talk about that. Because like I said, a mother, a grandmother, she wants to make sure that everybody is protected in that nest. And I want, especially when they're younger with the boys and everything, I want them protected. But the perspective is from adult children. But I want to see the adult children go through it. I don't want them to struggle, but I want to see them go through it, because you can only grow when you go through it. And so that's where sometimes, and I say use the word clash, but it's not necessarily a clash, but there's sometimes where we meet, and as the Bible says, we rub together and iron sharpens iron, so I can see her perspective and she can see my perspective and everything like that. So, and we balance each other out like two sides of a coin, but that's one of the tricks of parenting adult children.
But their time in Oklahoma was just that. Like I said, I would not reach out to them first. I would not text them. I wouldn't say, are y'all okay? What can I do? What do you need? Do you have money? Do you have this? I would wait until they reached out to me.
Which was key because there were other, and I'm not being negative towards because they may watch, but there were other parents in our life that constantly were so worried about y'all. I mean, it was daily. Are y'all okay? Is everything okay? We're worried. We're just worried sick. And it got on our nerves. And we're like, leave us alone. We're good. We're grown. We got this, But then when we needed something, we naturally went to the ones that weren't hounding us 24/7.
They struggled some in Oklahoma, but that's what built their marriage as what it is today. I'll never forget the first time we went back to Oklahoma, and I tell this story a lot. I would say, you've got to reach out to me. I will not ask you if you need something. And they would try to make it on their own, as they should. But I walked into the apartment and Josh says, Mom, I need to show you something. And Hope was sitting at the kitchen table. I will never forget. And he opened his pantry door, and I think they had been living off of Little Caesars every day, and there was a box of popcorn. And so that was him telling me he needed something. That was the first time he had reached out. That was the first time he waited till we got there. They made it on their own until it was time for us to come. And I said, okay, Hope, let's go. And at that time, she didn't know me as well as she does now. And she kind of sat there, and he said, Hope, get up. She's taking you to the grocery store. But again, you have to meet them where they're at and let them live on their own. And they'll always come back and ask you when they need you.
Right. Well, and the thing with that is I don't even know if this will translate well or if this makes sense, but the way that we conducted our marriage was we would talk about the problem, we would make a plan, and for some reason, because I thought my parents could fix everything, I didn't want them to fix it per se off the bat because I got a plan. But I felt better if they knew my plan. That way, if the plan fell through, they knew what I was doing and what the problem was, and they could fix it. So, we would sit, like Hope and I would sit in the living room and go, this is the issue. Here's what we're going to do. And then I would say, no, I'm going to go run it by my parents. And she didn't understand it at first and said, I feel better if they know what we're trying to do so that if it falls through, I can call and say, hey, it didn't work. It didn't work out, and know that they can fix it then. So what that did, though, was it opened communication and bred transparency where they knew everything that we were dealing with. We let them in on things because we wanted them, and they didn't try to fix it immediately. I would say, this is the issue. This is what we're doing to fix it. This is what we're working on. This is what we're doing on our end. And then again, sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. It's not a foolproof plan. I'm not an expert, or nor am I perfect. But the freedom to go, it made me feel better. I remember one time, I stepped outside to call my parents, and I walked back in the house, and Hope said, is it all situated? I said, no, we're sticking with our plan. And I said, but I feel so much better. And she said, but they ain't sending no money. I said, no, we're sticking with our plan. I had a plan. I had extra hours I was going to pick up. I had extra side gigs I was going to do. I said, we're sticking with our plan. She said, well, what made you feel better? I said, my dad knows. The fact that he knows. That means that now if my plan doesn't work, I'll call my dad right back and say, oh, it didn't work. And now I need you. The fact that he knows, that opened up communication where I didn't feel like keeping secrets, because when I called and said, hey, this is what I've got, this is the plan. He didn't go, well, no, this is what we're going to do. He didn't take over. I felt safe to have my plan and be the man of my household while also feeling secure that he knows what's going on. It's not a secret.
Adult parenting, in a nutshell, is if you've been to the circus and see the trapeze, the guys swinging on the swing up above the, and there's a net. That's your kids, and you're the net. You hope that you never have to be used and that they can do what they need to do. They can flip and they can do and they can ooh and ah the crowd, and you'll be happy with them oohing and ahhing the crowd. Everybody's excited. They're eating cotton candy. They got bubble wands. They got lights flashing and everything like that. And you don't care if you're seen at all, because all you are is to be that net in case something goes wrong.
Which puts it in perfect words, because that puts the feeling that I feel like when I would walk in and I tell Hope, I said, I called them and she's like, okay, what are they doing? I said, they ain't doing nothing. I just let them know. And she said, well, how does that make anything better? I'm like, okay, so we could say it this way. I looked down, the net was still there. It made me feel better. It made me feel safe to know I'm going to do my flips and flops and they're not going to help, but I just checked. And the net is still there. So we're good. We're good. As long as the net's still there, we're good. And that comes with boundaries, because parents want to be fixers. But if you try to fix it, I'm just not going to tell you stuff. Because, if you try to control it and fix it and get him the business, I'm just not going to tell you stuff. It's the skill of, I want to tell you what we're doing. This is our plan. I can handle it, I think. And here's the situation.
In the sense of accomplishment, I did this on my own. Yes, you were there in case something went wrong, but again, that's part of growing. Is for an adult, is that I did it on my own. I remember the first time I did something as an adult that I didn't have to have my parents help with. I'm not talking about like a teenager or something like that. When you had a financial situation or a mechanical situation with your car, or you had to make it something happen and you did it and you didn't have to have your parents help with it, then you accomplished that. You jumped that hurdle. It's behind you. Now there's a sense of accomplishment and a sense of, I did it. Now I can move on to something else, because that's not as big as I thought it was. That was something in front of me and I jumped it. It's behind me. Now I'm ready for the next obstacle.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and with that, my mom can speak to this, because with that comes the boundaries of, it's your life. A man should leave his father and mother, cleave unto his wife, leave and cleave, and
Thank
it's your
goodness
life.
he chose the perfect woman.
Right.
We love her, but we do not try to overstep. Even with her children, she is a fabulous mother. Those are their children. They stay at our house a lot. They ask for us all the time, but I don't do anything without asking her. When they were first
Right.
babies and they would try new things, I would text her and I say, is it okay if I do this? Can we do this? Can we take them here? Because ultimately, I'm just so thankful to be along for the ride. They're not my kids. They're Josh and Hope's kids, and they are the parents. Their rules go. We don't ever try to overstep. I'm sure there's times that we do give our opinion, but I try to stay on the side of, that's their household. They make the rules. They're grown, and they'll let us know what they need from us.
Right. Well, and even silly stuff like sometimes I will be with the kids and can't get to the door. I got to. The woman ain't coming in my house. That he's a GC, so that he built. Okay, he built and lost it, but had a key to it at some point, and we needed it, and you lost the key to the house. But anyways, he built the house and then gave me the key and kept a spare key that he's now lost. But they won't come in the house. They won't come in the house. They'll knock, and they will sit outside and knock with arms full of stuff, kids, whatever it may be, until somebody comes over, because it's not their house.
That's not my house.
I don't reciprocate. I just bust up in their house.
And that's different, because you lived there, you grew up there, and we're your parents. But it doesn't matter. Nothing is going on there. I just am not going in without an invitation or permission, because that's his house. He's the head of that house, but that is Hope Wyatt's house, and she is the mom. She is the wife. That is her house, and that's not my place.
Right. Just healthy enough boundaries. Even she brought up the parenting aspect of, now they have grandkids because I've got the 4 kids, and it was silly. This episode of the King Dominion podcast is sponsored by Blippy. but my 2-year-old loves watching Blippi, okay? And there's one episode of Blippi that has created issues in our home because it's sink or float. They play the game sink or float, and Blippi does a bunch of goofy, like he just
Trey
throws.
is a scientist.
He throws random stuff in a fish tank full of water to see if it will sink or float. That's cool. That's fine. Except we have a fish tank with real fish in there. And when I walk in and there's cups and cars and socks and all kinds of stuff that he's seeing will sink or float, I sent my parents a text and was like, we're not watching this episode anymore. We're not watching this episode of Blippi. And they're like, cool. Okay, whatever you say for the kids is what. They're not eating this. They're not doing this because, again, and I could say this to the parents of adult children that feel like, because let me encourage you, you feel like, well, if I back up, I'll lose them. No, if you suffocate them, you'll lose them. If you back up, you'll gain them.
That's right. If you back up, you'll become closer. It is actually almost a strange situation, our unit. Every day I kind of look at it and I'm like, what's really going on here? But it's the 4 of us raising 4 children. Right. But that is because we've created those boundaries. That's because we've let them live their own life and do their own things and only been there when they needed us. They'll need you more if you do that.
Right. Well, and the transparency, even back to my dad, because the transparency and the communication of now, I think when I was growing up, because he is a man, and I understand this now as a man, when I was growing up, he had pressure to, I'm the man, I gotta be right, I gotta have it together, I can't look weak. Now that we're both men, even though he's still my dad, the vulnerability and transparency that has bred such communication between, he said at one point to me years ago, he said, if there's ever any issues, I want you to come to me. Just talk to me about the issues. We can just talk. I want to talk about the issues. Well, that happened 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And one time I caught him on a bad day. He'd had a bad day at work. You know, subcontractors are idiots. And so anyways, he'd had a bad day and I came to him complaining about something and fussing about something. And I caught him on a bad day and he didn't get mad at me, but jumped back. And I was like, well, dadgummit. I hung up and left off the phone. Within an hour, I got a text and he said, I'm sorry that I didn't make this a safe place for you to come to me. I want you to be able to come to me. I'm under a lot of stress. Dads, you can say that to your adult kids. They're men too. They're women too. You can say, hey, I didn't handle that well. I'm under stress. You can admit that and be vulnerable. It'll make you closer because we're not God.
Well, even as 45-year-old parents, we are still growing every day. We still don't have all the answers. You know, we've raised 2 grown children. We still have an 11-year-old. Things are much different, even raising her. So there are times and there are bad days. So everything still is always changing.
Right. Well, and the ability to, because this is something a parent does, is instills confidence. And your words are so, let me speak to the parents. You don't, even of adult children, you don't realize how much your words that you say to your kids matter. I remember one time we were living in Oklahoma, and you don't understand how much your kids value your opinion, like what you think of the situation. Like you think they don't care, like it's make or break. And we were living in Oklahoma. We came home to visit for something. We was broke. We was arguing. I mean, we were not doing well. Like the marriage was just like, financial stress will add stress in the home, and we just were stressed. And I remember looking at my dad and saying, can I talk to you outside? And he followed me outside, and the first thing that came out of my mouth, I start squalling, and I said, I don't think we're going to make it. And he did. First he said, why? And I told him all the reasons of everything that was broken, and man, a few words until he starts talking. But then all he says is, he says, I think you're going to make it. And so finished up our conversation, put Hope in the car, and I looked at her and I said, I think we're going to make it. And she looks at me crying and she says, what changed your mind? Because she's upset because I just told her we wasn't going to make it. And I looked at her and said, I think we're going to make it. And she said, what changed your mind? And I said, my dad thinks we're going to make it. So that instills confidence, what you say.
That's one of those things, like, you know, when he lays out what they're going through, from an adult parent, you're looking at it like, I've been through that.
There.
I've been there. So what you're going through, because it's the first time they went through it, is big in front of them. But I'm looking on the other side because I've already been through it, and I'm like, this is not the this is not the death sentence that you think it is. Things are not as bad. And from an adult parenting standpoint, it's more about, be honest, but hey, it's not as bad. They're seeing it. The problem that a lot of times that the parents don't understand is that they're seeing it for the first time. You've already saw it. So again, as we had that analogy on the last podcast, there's potholes in this road of life, and there's dangers and everything like that. But I've been down that stretch of road. I know it. I live on a dirt road right now. I know where all the potholes are. I know where you turn and how you miss it. All right. So when somebody else comes down the road, before we actually started maintaining the road in a more diligent manner, I would say, hey, when you come off the road, there's going to be a pothole here and one there, and there's one there. You don't want to hit that one. So I've been through it. I can speak on that. And when he's laying out, hey, I don't think we're going to make it, I'm like, hey, I'm not belittling your situation. I'm reassuring, but like, look, you're fine. Y'all are okay. Take a time out, go to your corners. Then you can come out and have a fresh perspective on everything.
Right.
I think instilling confidence, even as grown children, is very important. There's times that, and I'm not talking about my biological children, but my daughter-in-law, Hope, I'll send her a text and I'll say, you're doing a great job. It's hard to raise 4 small kids and you feel like maybe you're losing control of the situation. And I'll say, you're doing a great job. You're even a better mother than I am. Because I think sometimes, she may think, well, she's got it all together.
It's
well,
recorded.
honey, I fake it till I make it, and you'll never know any different. But I tell her, you're a better mother than I am. You're doing a great job. You're strong. You can do this. The boys, those are your boys. And, I think that makes a world of difference. Still telling them they're doing a good job.
Right. Well, and see, here's even one last principle. Well, I'll say this and then I'll give this one last principle and we'll pray. But with that of instilling confidence, what it does when that's a safe place is we as adult children can bring insecurities. I'll never forget another story of when I was taking over the church, when I was taking over becoming the senior pastor of my grandparents' church. I looked at my parents, I think during church, and I said, I'm terrified. Like, I'm scared. And so regularly I'll make decisions at church, and my parents, who are on pastoral staff, who are on our board of directors, the secretary and treasurer, and so they do ministry with us. They look and they're like, this was a good decision. We trust you. You're doing good. Just like she said, that instilling confidence. But if I could speak to this and give advice to parents of adult children, there's 2 different things, and I'm not saying one's wrong. I'm just saying there's 2 different systems, 2 different lines of thought, okay? We have doing lunch with our kids and doing life with our kids. There's a difference. It's a metaphor. I'm not saying you don't ever eat lunch. I'm just trying. Maybe my parents will take me to lunch today. However, I'm not saying you don't ever do lunch. I'm saying there's a difference between, hey, can you work me into your calendar this week? And here's the other thing. Hey, what's your calendar look like and what can I do with you? Do you have a doctor's appointment? Can I go? What does your life look like? I want to do life with you versus carve me out a 30-minute section of your day so that now I have to add another thing to my calendar versus you coming into my calendar.
That's right. We have several things going on this week, and he shared his calendar with me a long time ago.
And Google calendars are linked.
And on Thursday, there's several different things. And one of Hope and Josh's children actually have an appointment. And I told her, Hope, I said, I can take him to the appointment or I can stay home if you want to take him.
Right.
Because I want to do whatever it is she wants to do. Where does she want to be, or where does she feel she needs to be the most? And so always being available for what they have going on or what they need, not just doing what I think needs to be done.
Right. The goal is not to do lunch with them. The goal is to do life with them. Like not add another thing for me to add to my calendar because now we have all this other stuff and we got to grab lunch with so-and-so. Like the goal is you see my calendar, come into it. What are we doing? And I even do this with discipleship. I don't make appointments with guys I'm mentoring anymore. I'm already walking we live in Moundville, and the Mounds is a big deal. I'm already walking at the Mounds. You want to spend time with me? Come walk with me. You come into something I'm already doing. That's how you can spend time with me. I'm not going to carve out other things for that. We do life together. The calendars are linked, and everything that we do together. So Any
Now, it's a
closing
busy
thoughts?
life.
It's busy. It's slammed. It's slammed. But any closing thoughts for either?
I mean, like I said, back to the thing. Well, I will say this. The last podcast we talked about, I don't want anybody to feel like we left something else. The last podcast we talked about how the worst day of our life was when I lost my mayoralship because bad things happen to good people. I like to end on this one. The best thing that happened to me is when I lost that mayoral race. I would have still been there doing hardly anything. When I left, I was able to build my son a house, my mom and dad a house. We had already started and built our house. We're not tooting our own horns, but I have 3 vehicles that he can borrow. He borrows. They borrow all the time. So I was able, and we have become a pillar as far as financial with the church. So I mean, I don't want anybody to think that good things, it's bad and everything like that. You don't see it until you get to the other side of it, and it took a few years to get there, but
you don't see anything when you're in the moment, and that's even with the experience of I don't think we're going to make it. You don't see anything when you're in the moment. Step outside, get some perspective. So maybe even you're like, man, my relationship with my kids is ruined. It's not. Back up, retry. You can grow, and it's going to be good. If it's not good, it's not done. God's going to work it out in your favor. You're a good mama. You're a good dad. You're doing a great job. We're praying for you, and we can't wait to see you again on the next podcast next week. We love you guys.